they say all men are created equal.
Shot! Master!
I'll pull out the Glock. Full of suffering, succotash, son.
It's one of your nuts hanging out of your shorts.
Real glass!
You have a father, but your father's dead.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Too Sweet podcast with Lucy and Estelle. We're back on a bit of a different note to what we've done before. So far we've been doing AEW reviews, Dynamite and pay-per-views. We've also done our tier ranking right at the very start. But we want to, now that we've kind of got used to like recording and the technical side of it and just getting comfortable in front of a camera and stuff, we want to explore like different things and just try out something new. So that's what today is all about. And it's the first time that we've kind of done something like this. So if you like it, let us know. If you've got any ideas for stuff, obviously let us know. But today's going to be like a exploration of a topic, and we're going to be talking about the mid-card, which is, I think, really interesting. I think like on the surface you might think it's just the middle of the card. Yeah, but that's what the name suggests. But there's so much interesting stuff, and that's kind of the type of thing we want to talk about, is things that you can like get into, just exploring stuff, our different opinions, stuff that's happened in the past and also present things as well. So if anyone's got any ideas for topics that you want to see us talk about, anything you think might be interesting, then feel free to let us know. If you've got any feedback as well, that'd be great to hear. But I guess I think you, Estelle, were the one who kind of suggested this. As I think this idea came from you originally. So what was the kind of thing that inspired you to want to talk about the mid card?
Well, I think just for the topic idea in general, which is our once a month episode, we'll still be doing the weekly Dynamites and pay-per-view reviews as much as we possibly can. The only reason we ever miss them is literally because we physically cannot. We only have so much time. But yeah, so the topics are kind of inspired by the fact that I'm sure if you watch those weekly episodes of our reviews, we end up going to segues and things that we want to talk about more. I think for the mid card, it was like one of those tangents, but then it was also like, I think I'd seen something somewhere about the idea of AEW's roster being bloated, and because it's so bloated, is there really a mid card? And then I just started thinking about the mid card, like that's such an interesting concept, and it's like, it's just general things, general topics that you can just dive into forever. And like Lucy said, talking about the past, talking about the present, reminiscing on some good times, and
Probably some bad
being
times
critical, some bad times, looking towards the future, and just having a good old discussion about something. So yeah, and also Elephant in the Room, our new logo.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Bit of rebranding.
Yeah, I got that WWF 90s style,
Neon purple, it's
early
beautiful.
90s, late 80s. That's kind of the vibe. And yeah, like I say, we've got quite a lot of things planned. So like I said, this episode style and this format, which is going to be now in rotation with our sort of upload schedule. And we have our TikTok, which we will be uploading clips to from the podcast. So if you could follow that, and we post, if you could give it a cheeky repost, that would definitely help. And also revisiting the tier list, there's definitely things you want to do, and some other essay style, question based things that are just more general and just broadening it out from AW, because while AW is the thing that we both consecutively watch and we have the biggest product knowledge of, and that's why we feel comfortable doing the review, we know about pretty much everything in wrestling that's big that's going on. I feel as though even if we don't talk about it on here, unfortunately there just is too much to watch. So while we couldn't give a Raw review, an NXT review, a Collision review, while we're not in that stage, unfortunately, to be able to do that, what we can do is sort of broaden things out about a bit and get into things that way. Although I do think this episode with the mid card will largely be talking about WWE and AEW, I think. as our
Yeah,
reference points.
yeah, most likely. But I think you're right. Like we've got a lot of history, like years of watching. We've got the knowledge, it's there. And something like this, it gives us the opportunity to go off on those tangents that doing the reviews,
Yeah,
we kind of have to reel ourselves in because we'd be talking for hours and hours about a
yeah,
2 hour show. Um, Interesting. I think sort of part of this conversation came from the tier ranking that we did because one of the
yeah,
tiers that we had was mid, and it was kind of like, you're just mid. You're not good, you're not bad. Um,
yeah. I think we had like a mid-card sort of tier as well, but I can't remember the exact name.
mm, yeah,
There was
yeah,
a
and
mid one, and yeah,
I remember
it's ringing a
saying
bell.
often like they're a mid card, they're going in the mid card tier, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's just where they belong. And I
Yeah, and there
think,
wasn't much nuance we could do with that.
mhm,
Like you explained it like that, but there wasn't much. Whereas like what we want to do this episode is talk about the nuance, and
exactly,
yeah,
yeah, because I I just googled like mid card to see what sort of definition it would come up with, and it
yeah,
said the part of the
middle
wrestling
of the
show.
card.
Yeah, literally the part of the wrestling show in the middle of the card in brackets program or schedule. It is less prestigious than the upper card and more so than the lower card. Like, okay, there, yeah, that's
Yeah,
obviously, but like saying there's nuance to it as well in wrestling. So, I mean,
yeah, definitely.
where do we even begin?
Yeah, I think a great point is the definition, which you've kind of done already, in I guess what Google would say the general uh breakdown of it is, yeah, the middle of the card, the middle of the roster. Um, but I would say that, and as we're going to get into with this discussion, I don't necessarily think there is that much difference nowadays. I think it literally is just mid card and main event, and
Mhm.
then you have the other, I guess, sort of subsections of that women's division, tag division, trios, which are out of it. But the mid card seems to be exclusively just for uh, solo wrestlers, competitors that aren't in the upper tier. I don't really think the lower card exists anymore. I don't like back in sort of like the PG era, which we are PG kids, so like we have a lot of knowledge of that. For better or for worse, that's like was our peak wrestling
Yeah,
years. We didn't have the luxury of growing up with Attitude Era programming. We're talking like late two, well, I guess like mid 2000s to like mid
2010.
2010s was like our childhood of wrestling,
Hmm.
like our nostalgic. So we did get a tiny taste of ruthless aggression, but not really.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, you'd get more jobbers on that sort of programming, throwaway matches than nowadays, even in WWE. It just doesn't really seem to be that existent anymore. So I think it's not as simple as just, oh, it's the middle of the card. It just seems to be like I say, yeah, everyone else that isn't in the main event. And I also don't think it exists in the women's division either. I think it to me, when I think mid card, it's exclusively men, and it's exclusive, like I say, single competitors
So do
that are
you,
not for the world title.
so does that mean that the women are like the top of the card sort of thing, or are there something else completely?
I think for the women, uh, it, the women are separate, but it's just the top of the card for the women,
Mm.
and then like a wasteland. Like
That's
only three or
yeah,
four women are rotated round and taken seriously,
yeah.
and then there's just like I say the wasteland, which mean nothing. I mean, in WWE you've got the women's tag belts as well, so they have a little bit more that they can sink their teeth into. I'm not saying for God's sakes do not bring another belt over, Tony. That is not what we're saying. But yeah, I think I don't know. I just don't think a mid card exists in women's wrestling. It's just the title, because as we've said before, all the storylines revolve around the title.
Yeah, that's the
And there's just two
problem.
titles at the minute, and they're both being held with high prestige. You can't even say the TBS is a mid card title because Monet's holding it.
Yeah,
So it's
and
totally
we've talked about this a
obliterated
lot.
the
Mhm.
secondary division of the women's division. So as I say, that is why my personal definition of the mid card is just male only.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Because you've got such a big male roster,
Yeah.
not everyone can challenge for the male championship, but in the women's division, they can actually because the women's division is so small, and that seems to be the only way they can build a story is if it's around that title. So yeah, that makes sense. But then, in the men's division, you've got what some people will call, yeah, like you just mentioned, mid-card championships. So, things like the TNT Championship, in WWE, they got obviously the Intercontinental, the US, got the North American title in NXT, Ring of Honor Television Championship. So then that begs the question, do these championships mean anything? Or should everyone just be fighting for the main championship, the heavyweight of the world,
Yeah. It's always been a paradox. Like, even as a kid, I'd always think, like, really young, like, why are these guys going for, like, the Intercontinental when you could go, or like Money in the Bank, and when the World Heavyweight title used to exist, which broadened out, like, that mid card even more because it was like you had the upper mid card with that World Heavyweight Championship. But I'd always think to myself, why the hell would you go for that one? And
why would you
controversial opinion,
choose
it's an
that?
ugly belt. I like the spinner belt. That's just another separate opinion. But I always thought, like, why would you want that? Like, why would you not go for the world title? So I guess it's just a bit of a paradox that you've just got to suspend your belief in wrestling. Monet, why is she going for the TBS title? Unfortunately, just kind of got to grit your teeth and bear it. But I don't necessarily think that those titles mean nothing because they should have their own separate identity. Like, I don't know. I guess for in AW got the TNT title, that's sort of representative of a media face, like a face of that company, not just AW but larger. Um, and like the international title, the intercontinental title, then that's like as in the name international. Then you've got the continental, which was won
Yeah, forgot to
through
mention
a
that one.
tournament. So they all should kind of have their separate identity and their own separate prestige. I know, especially in WWE, a lot of people would always talk about wanting to win the IC title because of their past heroes holding it and the prestige that had. So it kind of had a nostalgic value. Um, so yeah, I think you're totally right in that point. Like, does it really matter? No, but the this is making my brain hurt a bit. But like, they do
Yeah,
have some value, and you kind of have to suspend your belief as a fan.
yeah,
And I think good title reigns and nostalgia sort of can help you sort of break that skeptic that inner skeptic about it. I guess that's like
yeah,
the only way they can really get around it, really.
yeah. Because if you've got someone who is a mid-carder, like a mid-carder with like you think of it in
A
like a bad
capital
way.
M.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
exactly. Someone seems like they're stuck in the mid-card, but they get a championship. It's, championships by the very definition add prestige to someone. They give them
Mm.
credibility to then, in theory, go on to challenge for the world championship. But
Yeah, like it
in
should be a ladder.
yeah, in
Yeah.
WCW, the US champion was the number one contender to the world championship. So that's like an interesting concept. There's always a reason to fight for the US championship in that sense. But now, these days, it's not as clear cut as that because you've got several
No.
mid-card belts, um, and so many mid-carders at the same time. And, you know, yeah, it's a good way to build someone up. And maybe, I know a lot of people build great sort of like identities around a championship. Like someone like, the Miz. Um, I sort of associate him and Dolph Ziggler with like the Intercontinental Championship, for example.
Yeah.
Um, Ultimately, these belts are good ways to drive like those stories and feuds and sort of develop someone into something different. Because you can't have everyone fighting for that main belt, even though that's what they should all want in the long term. If you think about it, like theoretically, that's the biggest one. But especially somewhere like WWE. on commentary and like online, they've got like past belts that they've won, and it's this big list of accolades, and that's a big reason for someone to build legitimacy and stuff. Um, so, and I often find that the mid card sort of championships are more interesting than the world one because sometimes that can just end up being really predictable and formulaic. Whereas, like you said, you have like these other ones have the opportunity for different styles of wrestling, different format. In theory, I think the international championship in AEW is supposedly meant to be able to be defended like anywhere over the world. That's kind of the point of it.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting concept, but I think it's mainly been defended on AEW, hasn't it? But it kind of opens up to these new sort of ideas. Like, don't know if you count the cruiserweight belt in that when that existed. It's giving guys who aren't the world champion a chance to just show off something different match styles and things like that.
Yeah. And it's like you say with the accolades, that's sort of a storyline in itself. You get that belt collector storyline. But you're so right about that hypothetically it should be an even simpler answer than what I said, and it's so in your face, building your way up to the main event, to the title scene. But I
Mm-hmm.
think also what kind of inflicts on that is I don't want to speak to whether this is a nowadays thing or whether it's always kind of been this way, because I guess I haven't really given it too much thought. But the fluidity at which main event guys who are veterans move up and down the card,
Mm-hmm.
to kind and it's a great thing. It buffers up younger talent. Um, I'm trying to think, maybe like Mox, when he went, he was world heavyweight title, um in his when he first debuted, right? He went straight into that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, I think a couple of months ago, I don't know, he was in that feud with Orange Cassidy for the international. But then that kind of muddles the mid card because the belt is no longer a mid card belt. It sometimes when you've got those main event guys going for it as well, it kind of muddles it all a bit, and I don't know, it kind of loses its identity. And I get why, because it does, like I say, bolster the reputation of the belt and help the guys that they're wrestling against, gives it greater prestige. But in that instance, it makes that I'm gonna win this title and then this title and then this title and go up and up. Um, and there is kind of a ranking, I think, to the belts. I remember when I was watching WWE when I was younger, and I always thought the US title was the shittest one.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then the IC was above that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though technically they were both supposed to be leveled, you always had the IC title higher and then it went up
Yeah.
and up. Um, so so yeah, it kind of makes that path a bit more difficult, I think.
Yeah, you just reminded me of when John Cena was the US champion for a long time. And
Oh yeah, that was a great run.
he did his open challenges and stuff on Raw every week, and he really
Yeah.
brought some prestige to that belt. And then I think for a while Seth Rollins held that belt as well as the WWE Championship, and that was kind of like a double champion thing for a long time. So yeah, you're right. It muddies the waters a bit. It it makes it adds prestige to it. It makes it feel like serious, like you want to compete for it. But then it's not that step ladder to the top. That in yeah, as you say, in the simplest terms, that in
The
theory should be
imaginary
what it
brass
is.
rings
Yeah,
that you need to grab.
yeah. Um,
But
yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think that's a great thing, like lean into nostalgia and, like I say, being PG kids, like what our favorite mid carders were growing up. Um, so like for me, I know you mentioned Dolph Ziggler and The Miz.
Mm-hmm.
To me, are like pillars of the mid card.
100%.
And another thing as well is like that storyline of, and it interlinks with following up the brass rings to get to the top, is that root ability that you get for a mid-carder,
Yes.
that you want to see them rise out of the mid-card into the main event scene. Unfortunately for Ziggler, we never really got that full payoff. But as well, I think that leads into something that I've been thinking about a bit, which is that in wrestling, it's not necessarily the destination, i.e., the belt or the title reign, it's the journey, it's the chase. And even though Ziggler didn't get that, it doesn't make me look back on his match against The Miz or that feud or his desperation um to sort of prove himself as the best, his those matches, his selling, the way he tried to up his game and the way he connected with the fans, it doesn't really take that away. And how, when we look at this is kind of veering away from mid-card, but I just want to make this point, like MJF and Adam Cole, the Devil storyline, the fallout of that, it wasn't great. I don't think that story's fully paid off yet. It's not the conclusion of it, but it was the journey that was great. It was that
Yeah.
romance summer, and it's that feel good moment. And you think about Cody Rhodes, who's now um the face of WWE as WWE champion, how the fans are sort of turned on him, and like kind of had that with Adam Page's reign as well, where that baby face finally gets it, and suddenly it's like, oh, it's like anticlimactic.
Yes.
So I think that's like the great thing about the being in the mid card, and that sort of storyline is it has a lot of legs behind it, and what a chase, what a marathon to run.
100% agree with you. I mean, as someone who's sort of worked at wrestling events, like independent ones, like small ones, but being backstage and listening to, sorry to sort of break kayfabe, but people
The
talking
fourth
about
wall.
people talking about like feuds and matches and things and stories. It's something you hear really often, and it's like it's about the chase. Like you've got to make people wait for it for that big payoff because because sometimes it can be really difficult. I think sometimes to make a call of that, oh, he's not going to win the championship at this one, or she's not going to beat her at this show. It's going to, someone's going to cheat to win, or it's going to be a ref bump or something like this. It can be difficult to say that because like, oh, the fans are going to hate it. They're going to be really pissed off. But like you say,
Yeah.
it's about that journey. Moments like that make it memorable. And then when you get that big payoff, it makes it really worth it. Um, but I think what you said about like it being anticlimactic is so interesting because I've always had like a soft spot for mid-carders who just aren't quite there and like they're just not those men.
Claudio.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you read my mind. That's what I was about to say, obviously. I mean, he is the very definition of a mid-carder, I think. As much as I love him, he's
It
just
makes
not
you love him even more. Do you
exactly.
think that adds to why he is do you think you'd love him as much as you'd love him now if he had have won the big one years ago?
I think
You
I
know,
don't know. It's hard
I
to
think,
say.
CM Punk is another one of your favorite wrestlers, right? And he is a top guy. He is by no
He's top
means a
guy.
mid card. It kind
Mm.
of had to come out of the mid card. It's dual winning of the Money in the Banks to really sort of set his kind of semi push, I guess. And then Summer Punk got himself over. But yeah, he will never be a mid carder, and you don't love him any less. He's got a different
Mm.
special place in your heart. But I guess that's the thing, and it's different. It's a different sort of special love you've got for Claudio to Punk because it is that root ability, and it is every time you watch his match, you're so like the pride you get from watching him. And I
Yeah.
know that second hand all in
Yeah.
the despair at that roll up at all in, guys. Like it was
Oh,
real emotion there. And
don't
not
remind
to
me.
say that you wouldn't get that from a Punk match. You had your own emotion there for the nostalgia reason, but yeah, it's I don't know, it's just special, isn't it? I think.
Well, it's sort of like a gatekeepery sort of hipster thing. It's like I
Yeah.
appreciate him. No one else appreciates him as much as like
Yeah.
I hate to admit it. It sort of is a bit like that because I feel proud and so happy when people are like, oh my God, Claudio's had this amazing match on Dynamite this week. He's amazing, blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, I know he is. I've known this from the start. Um, I'll just pause because
You haven't come back for me.
I don't. Yeah, and it's just like you want to get behind them. You want them to do well, and like you said, you're super proud every time they do well. And it's like you want them to be world champion, but like you say, it's weird because if I don't know if I think I still would love him if he did get the big one, but it's a different sort of appreciation. Um, he's that solid presence in the mid card, Claudio, like someone you can rely on to have bangers with every wrestler to elevate people, to entertain, to sort of, prop up the middle of the card where sometimes, maybe the audience is faltering a bit because wrestling cards are fucking long. Like shows are really long. You need
Yeah.
solid matches in the middle to keep everyone going. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think it's to steal a term from one of the other wrestling podcasts that I listen to, Waffly Bollocks. They call it WWE related PTSD, where it's like from watching WWE for so long, you kind of you start to hate certain things from WWE, and it's things that you picked up. They often would just shove a main eventer down your throat, whether you liked them or not, and that just makes them so uncool. Like you might love them, but then it gets super oversaturated, and like you said before, fans turn on him. Um, and that is a thing that doesn't happen if you in the mid card and you feel like they're not being appreciated enough because you want them to get more time and more opportunity. Um, and you appreciate it when they do. But then suddenly, if they become a main eventer, it's you don't get that anymore.
Yeah, it's like the Danielson Roman Reigns thing. I think that's sort of
Yeah,
the biggest example of that, um, and how organically over Danielson was. And that's another thing about the mid card is the support and the connection from the fans, and the
yeah.
rootability is very organic. And it's like I say, it's not oversaturated and it's not being pushed down your throat. And it's a great little experimentation. I feel like wrestling should always kind of have that kind of safeguarding for all levels. Be that performing on a C show, be that developmental, be that just whatever it may be for that person to go and practice their craft and connect with the fans on a smaller scale and then
Mm.
build up the confidence, build their esteem, build up their own prestige. Some of the best in the world have done that and they've kind of been mid-carders of the world. Osprey, the way he kind of went about his career, um, and wrestling all over all different promotions of all different levels, even to this day. Um, to kind of get over organically with the fans, and I think that's another great tool
Yeah.
of being in the mid card. So yeah, but just in terms of like other names of the past, just bringing it back to its original track for a moment. I for me, like the standout name, it's one you've mentioned, is The Miz. The Miz is just the goated mid-carder. The legacy he has cemented, and yeah, he is a WWE champion. He did win that belt. No one liked that.
He
Uh,
main evented WrestleMania.
The main event of WrestleMania, no one cares about that. No one. Yeah, it's a fun, impressive accolade. To put on his, I guess his. I don't know if they even have like the little stats page on the WWE website. I don't know if you remember that. I used to be like obsessed with the WWE website back when I was like a kid, and they used to have like the little profiles and stuff. But
Mm.
it's fun in that respect. But that isn't what people remember him for or what people love him for. And I think as well, like it's great for him because that's kind of reflective on his real life journey. He was a past reality star. No one kind of took him seriously. His attitude, for whatever reason, he just couldn't seem to fit into the locker room,
Mm.
the hazing that he had to suffer. But he was so hungry for it. But it didn't matter because he just couldn't, like, even when he was main event, and he was sort of pushed and oversaturated because he was one of McMahon's faves. Like it wasn't organic and it didn't get over, but it's interesting. The mid card is it's just his home, and yeah, to me, he's just gutted for that, and I just really respect his journey. And now he's one of the veterans that I think people backstage go to for advice, and he may not have the riskiest wrestling style, or he's sort of done it in his own way, and I'll always respect performers who do it in their own way, I guess.
Yeah, same. I completely agree with you. He's like his longevity is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know how long he's been wrestling, but it's been a fucking long time, and he hasn't aged at all. He looks pretty much the same. He is still able to wrestle in the same way because he uses that sort of safe style, and I'm sure you'll remember him going off at Daniel Bryan about it, and that's kind of I think that was a pivotal point for him because people were like, "Shit, he's right,"
Yeah.
and he can cut a damn good promo, and you can tell that he meant every second of it. He's been such a mainstay for WWE, and really like such an effective heel, like giving a lot of baby faces like their chance to get in a quite a high profile feud with him.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of like a test, I believe, nowadays. Like they actually put stars who are in the mid card who they want to push up, and it's like the Miz test, and they put it out there with him, hand him a mic, and go on then, and see whether they
wow,
sink or swim. And I believe that it was kind of like they still, well, kind of, he's not really mainstream anymore, but with Cena, that was sort of the Cena wall that you had to sort of get through, suffering succotash, something, something. But yeah, that just shows just how cemented he is and his legacy, yeah, in WWE is.
yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't know that, but it makes complete sense because he can great at cutting a promo, and yeah, like his matches maybe they're not the fucking 5-star classics that you're gonna remember. They're still good matches. You don't have to be a hard um bumper or like ridiculous high flyer to put on a good wrestling match. Um, Interestingly, I know you mentioned Cody Rhodes before, but he was like the most mid carder to ever mid card when he was in WWE
Yeah.
before AEW, and now look at him like how the bloody hell does that work? I mean, the fucking Stardust was almost dare I
I'd
say
argue
like
that's jobber. Like
yeah,
I
I was
don't
just
even
about
think
that's what I
that's
was gonna
even mid
say.
card at that
Yeah.
point.
I was just about to say that. I was that's like lower card. I mean, I remember he was fighting for the Intercontinental Championship at some point or other, but it wasn't ever a serious thing. It was just lol, look at the man in silly face paint. And
Yeah.
now it's and now look at him.
Yeah, it's a great story. Hell, that's what they built a whole program around, two WrestleManias back to back. So yeah, undoubtedly. But I think when his legacy will be looked down on, I don't think it'll be those mid card moments. They weren't highs of his career.
No.
Sure, Dash and Cody Rhodes was a fun little moment, but I think like people will look at that indie New Japan, uh, the Thirst Double or Nothing, that sort of thing, and then going to WWE and dethroning Roman Reigns. I don't. So like, although he had that big mid card journey, I just don't really like define him as that. I don't
No.
think
No, you don't because no, you don't because you don't just define him as like a mid card, but
the chase wasn't fun.
no, it
Like
wasn't.
the chase only began when he left WWE. I'd argue.
I think probably because it didn't ever feel like it was a chase. He didn't ever feel like he had that legitimate chance before. It
Yeah.
didn't because often in the mid card, sometimes it feels like they're building to something big. Sometimes it doesn't. It just feels like they're going nowhere. It's just a dead end to absolutely nothing. That's
But
when
you
it
don't really get
sucks.
that nowadays. I don't know if it's
Mm.
just with watching AW, but like back in the day, you'd have Fandango, Tyler Breeze, the genesis of McGillicuddy. God, I mean, the list just goes on. Zack Ryder,
Yeah,
you had those sorts
yeah,
of people who were lower mid card, if you could even call it that, jobbers. And nowadays, the only time you really see a jobber is in a squash match. And personally, I prefer it that way when the talent is so deep and the roster so deep. And I'm speaking to AW now. No one wants that. Not that anyone wanted it back then, but I think it was kind of
You don't
cruel
need it
because
now.
people connected with those. I mean, God, how over was Fandango? How over was stupid fucking gimmicks like No Way Jose?
Yeah.
And it was cruel, I guess, to those people who were like the number one fans. Adam Rose, I mean, all these people that Funkasaurus, like
Oh my God.
just these random like circus acts almost.
Hmm.
And nowadays there's just no place for it. The caliber of wrestling is so high that, like I say, we didn't really touch on it before when we're doing our definition. Like it literally is nowadays. It feels like mid card, main event scene. You don't really get that lower part anymore. So it's either you sink or swim.
That's such an interesting point because I think you can easily overlook that until you start comparing it to all them people you just mentioned, like as short a time ago as like 10 years ago, like,
But the
Fandango.
buzz they had as well, that cool,
Hmm.
they were real eras at the time. Like you had to be there. Like these people were over.
Do you remember the bunny with Adam Rose and
Funny.
the feud? There was a guy dressed up in a bunny suit.
It
It was,
rings a
it,
bell.
it was in the he was one of the Rosebuds, and then there was a big feud with this guy in this bunny suit.
God, the rosebuds.
Why did I sit and watch that and think this is entertaining? I honestly don't know why. But yeah, you don't
But
have
I
that
think that was like an
same.
Attitude Era thing as well. Like the Attitude Era was a lot of shite as well
Yeah.
with like random ass characters who all had a job, which I would like to bring back. Like I don't know. Everyone had a job, didn't they, back then?
Yeah, an occupation.
Jim, yeah, Jim Duggan, Sergeant Slaughter. Everyone had a job. So that just led to the most random storylines. And yeah, like I said, it's fun, it's circus, it's sports entertainment. But I think even now WWE, like even though it's sports entertainment, I still think it's way more sports present presented
It
than it
is.
ever was in the past with the UFC merger. They definitely want to be taken more seriously. That to me, it's kind of like sports entertainment in the same way that like modern boxing has become like the spectacle of
Mm,
the Furies and KSI and all that bullshit. Um, but it's still got a level. I don't want to say prestige, but it's still got that level to it of sport.
yeah.
So you don't really get that anymore. Like I said in my research, because I was researching what were people's favorite mid carders of this era. People shouting out like Tyler Breeze, and I was just like, has Tyler Breeze ever been in the mid card? Yeah, we love Tyler Breeze. Tyler Breeze is a travesty that man didn't get it. He broke my heart. Okay, it's like you saying WWE PTSD broke my heart, gave me trust issues. Okay, I wanted that man to get over so bad. I thought he was great in the ring, a great talent, but yeah, like
Him
I say,
and
nowadays that just wouldn't cut it. Nowadays, if you connected to the crowd like that, you would be pushed. But
yeah,
during that era, you just didn't. So it was like you were either just at the bottom, or the mid if
yeah,
you
him.
were lucky.
Just remember the Fashion Police, him and Fandango. That
I
was
loved that. That was great.
that was when the 24/7 title was like the undercard, like the lower card, I think. But then they got rid of that, and that was kind of like saying goodbye to all you sort of pointless characters, and we're going
Yeah.
all in. Like you're either in it seriously or you don't have a spot on the card, and that's it. Um, but I have a question though. What about pre-shows? Okay, so you're not good enough to be on the main
Yeah.
show, but you're on the pre-show. Is that lower
Well, now
card?
we've got Jay White on a pre-show.
Mm-hmm.
The pre-show is at such a high stakes now, that it is like to get on AEW, which is what I watch consecutively. I watch every pay-per-view, so I can't speak to the same lengths as WWE. I will watch matches of pay-per-view of like pay-per-view. I might watch like if it's a special, if it's like a Rumble, if it's a ladder match, uh WrestleMania, those few matches I watched there. But yeah, whereas AW, I'm watching it consecutively, and I know just how tight those cards are. There is no route. We were talking about it on last week's review of people complaining it's 6 hours long, but where'd you cut it? You know,
For real, for real.
so it just isn't anymore. You get your top stars on there, and I don't think it is indicative of. I think yeah, they're mid carders. They're definitely not main event people, else they would have
Mm.
been on the pay-per-view. But like I say, anyone could end up on there really nowadays. It feels like.
Yeah, it's a lot more of a lottery now than it used to be. I think WWE still sort of at Mania have the formulaic thing of just shoving everyone in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal.
Yeah,
Who they
get
don't
that
have
paycheck.
they don't have a spot on the card, like, give him something. But that that's it really. Everything else has been built up on TV. It's not throwaway, it's not lower card. Um, so yeah, thinking about that as well, when I was a kid, one of my favorites was, for some reason, Santino Marella, and I feel like he was
I
probably.
hated Santino Marella. You like R-Truth as well. Not right.
Would you hate
S-
fun? You just don't like having fun?
Apparently so. Even as a kid, I was a mark. When he won the Divas title, I was
Oh,
fuming.
I don't think I watched that because the
I was
raging young
raging.
feminist in me would have hated that. I don't think I saw that. I was there for like the
Yeah.
Cobra and stuff. I was like, oh, I love it, it's so fun.
No, I used to piss me off. Even as a kid, I was like, where's the 5-star, 7-star matches? Like, fuck this. Like, but I'm glad, that you love the Cobra.
I loved Sheamus as well, and I was totally happy when he beat Daniel Bryan in 7 seconds at WrestleMania.
That's fair. He had a great theme. He had a great
Yeah,
look going for him.
he was a great
So,
babyface. But Sheamus is someone who's been world champion, but he sort of seems like a mid-carder to me, like just this
oh
guy.
yeah, absolutely. Same with Miz. Like he had his world title championship during that era, but no one speaks of that. Um, but he's a great mid carder, and he's sort of taken on that role where the Miz is of lifting people up. Um, just like a program they'll insert people into to learn things from, and those are important people. The mid card isn't just new, aspiring, hungry guys, but like I said, there is a fluidity to it, and you get veterans sliding up and down the card. Um, and then you get those veterans that do just reside in the mid card, because it's a better stay for them.
Hmm. Some people just
Billy
fit.
Gunn,
They just fit there. Yeah.
Arn Anderson, Dean Malenko, Miz, Sheamus, the list goes on. But I think it's a great point about how the dynamics of it's changed. Like I say, and like you say, looking back, how different things used to be, whereas now there's less filler in the mid card, and like it is just the upper sector. Um, so yeah, I wasn't sure if there's anything else you want to touch on, in terms of like nostalgia or standout mid carders, or if you wanted to give some examples of your favorite mid carders at the moment.
Here's an interesting one. Back in the day, Christian was a top tier mid-carder.
He was, but
And
he
now
still is.
he still is, but then he's just challenged for the world championship. And
That's
people
true.
people were critical of that, maybe because they still see him as that mid-carder.
That's true, but he's not going to win it, and I think it's just a little side quest, really. Just Copeland's out, like it's just a cheeky side quest, but that is true when you talk about great mid carders of the past and of today as well.
Mhm.
Christian is definitely up there, and I think the beauty of Christian is how he sort of hit his prime in his later years.
Mhm.
That people are fully appreciating the talent that he had, because he was overshadowed by Edge. But in AEW, he overshadows Copeland. No discredits Copeland. I've actually very much enjoyed his programs. I thought he put on a hell of a sick cage match with Malachi Black. But he definitely outshines him in AEW. But how lovely that is. I just love them. Love their friendship.
Yeah, and it's for all those girlies who always prefer Christian over Edge, and we always knew he was the better one, but he never got the credit he
I
deserved.
wasn't. I was an Edge girl. My nana loved Edge, so
Oh,
in
I'm
that
the same.
household we were raised on Edge.
But both of them had absolutely amazing theme songs in WWE. Like, just besides the point.
Because that's yeah,
That's
that is
important.
just so beside the point. The theme song, yeah, great theme song. He has a great theme song now though. I
Yeah.
mean, Copeland pretty much has the same one, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
you're
alright.
not feeling that epic
It's,
do do do.
it's going through my head on a constant loop now.
Like,
Like when
but
you
I
said
think,
it, it's catchy.
don't you
It's
think
just
that
instrumental, but
if you close your eyes or whatever that song's called, that's quite a mid-cardery underdog song though, like lyrically.
it is. It is. That is
If you
so
want to
true.
analyze the theme songs up in here as well.
It's like having a dream and like you want to achieve your dream and of getting
English literature
the
student, we're going to start
championship.
analysing every word.
If you want, we can change this podcast and just do like song analysis,
Promo
WWE.
analysis.
Yeah, bring back Jim Johnston. That's why I say
Oh, Jim Johnson, good. Absolutely. Get rid of fucking CFO.
so trash, so
So
trash.
trash.
Um, you just mentioned Malachi Black, by the way. I think he is a good mid carder, but I don't really see him going further than the mid card.
No, and that's like another question I had is like people who other people overrate in the same way that I think Tyler Breeze and Zack Ryder, and maybe that's rose tinted glasses as well, but people who are overestimated for their ability. And I agree, Malachi Black is one of them.
It's not that I don't think he's
For
good.
sure.
He is very good, but I don't see him in that main event spot.
No,
I can't
no,
quite put my
me
finger on why.
neither. No, it just doesn't work for me. I just don't think you can compare him to like my personal favorite mid Carter right now. In the same way the legacy that the Miz has, this man will also have that legacy. This man is just he's like Mark Lot, like the love I feel for Orange Cassidy is like the love you
I
feel for
knew,
Claudio.
I knew
And
you were about to say that.
just but it was weird because when we did the tier ranking, we put him at the top because he's so good. And it's like the Miz, like if I was gonna do a tier ranking of WWE roster, like even though he's not like main event, I'd put him at the top because he's just good. Like I he just he's just the best. He's just the best mid carder. In an almost like mascot face of the company way. And I think that is the ultimate I guess the ultimate deciding phrase. I don't know how to phrase like the
Yeah,
ultimate
it's like one of the best
thing is like
compliments you could give someone.
when they are it doesn't matter that they're in the mid card, they are a face of that company. They are on one of those trucks, they are on the program, they're on the cup, they're on that seat that you sit your ass on at ringside,
Yeah.
they are in that title sequence at the start of the show.
hmm
Not to almost cut a pipe bomb there. I'm not on those cups. I'm not on the fucking start of the show. But yeah, like he just transcends that. And I think he'll have a legacy very similar to the Miz.
Yeah. But do you see Orange Cassidy like going above the mid card and being that main eventer, being the world
I
champ?
think he could once. I think I'd love to see him win that title, have that moment where he fully lets go and just loses his shit. But I think it'd be a great little reign, but I don't think it's somewhere that he the same way that the Intercontinental title is tied with the Miz, it's the International with Cassidy. But I definitely would like him to see him go into the main event. He swings around with those guys, swings around with Okada, and some people are probably going to think he's not a mid carder, he is a main eventer because he has those matches. But I still think his ties are so strong to the mid card. Yeah, you can flitter out and you can do whatever and you can have those little programs, but that is where the base and the crux of his character truly is and
Yeah,
where he is his best. But yeah, I'd definitely like to see him win the big one at one point when it's appropriate, and I think they could definitely do something fun there.
I agree. I can see it happening like I just completely lost my train of thought. Sorry.
I can see it happening. No, I can't.
What was I gonna say? I had like a good point to make. Um,
Not like a throwaway few, but kind of like in the same way that the Christian Cage Swerve feud is sort of happening. The way that like they're not gonna win, although I wouldn't be against him winning the title, but in that sort of the like Cassidy is like a transitional champion, is what I'm trying to say. A transitional for a transitional.
mm,
Like
I
that
see what you're
sort of
saying.
thing, if that
I
makes sense.
Yeah, it does make
Like I
sense.
don't know if I'd have like an MJF lose to him or one of your top protected
Mm,
stars, but maybe when it was in the Joe era, um, like he was a transitional champion, I wouldn't have been mad. And I guess you could argue is Swerve a transitional champion right now? I would argue yes. Like those types of people who aren't going to have those lengthy reigns. I don't think he should end like a 400-day reign or anything stupid like that. But like a fun pop feel good moment. Um, I think he'd do great of like being underestimated and being seen as that mid card guy, and then that's where he lets all of his full rage out. We see him go full capacity. We see him win the big one. Like I just love it. I just love to see it happen. Just
yeah,
once. I don't even need it more than once.
is that too much to ask? Same. I can see that. I can see WWE doing. I mean, God, AEW doing that.
Yeah, fuck it. Fuck it.
Yeah,
He should have
he's
ended
leaving.
Reigns.
He's leaving. He's going to the other one. No, I can see them doing it sort of like as a nod to him being that sort of person who's always been there, like as a thank you to him. Like he's been there
Yeah.
since day one. He's been this just solid member of the mid card. He's always been there for loyal to AEW, putting on great matches, putting on great stories and great feuds. Um, Someone like that deserves the championship, even if it is just once, and if it is quite quick, not gonna blow you away like legendary historic feud. I mean, Reign, but he still deserves it, and it'd still be great. Like the fans want to see that, and there's a great story behind it. Like you say, like he's been underestimated, and then finally, like he snaps or something. That'd make for really good TV.
And it's like you said, that accolade, yeah, it's just something written on a bio, like for the Miz or, even the Serena Deeb. I have my suspicion that that was sort of a, a, a token
Mm,
thank you gratitude match. But it's still nice to have those. I do think with Cassidy it's more than like deep. Like he is deserved as well.
yeah, yeah, 100% he is.
But yeah, those accolades it still means something, and everyone wants to be world title, like hold the world title and be the face of the company at some point.
Yeah, no one would probably. I highly doubt anyone would say no if they were like, right, we're gonna put the belt on you. No, I don't want it. Like I
Yeah, no, I'm all right.
absolutely doubt it.
But yeah, like I said, I just don't think like that to me. That kind of measures up to Malachi Black. Like I'm not that enticed, and I don't know. Like I he hasn't really had like a chance in AEW. I don't think so. Like I've always tried to give him that chance, and during the Copeland feud, like yeah, he's a great worker. I love his wrestling, and I can enjoy his promo style and his character style in the same way that I can maybe enjoy a really rich chocolate cake. Like I don't need that. Like it's gonna get sickly quite fast, but
Hmm.
I can still appreciate it.
Small
Um,
doses.
yeah, I do, but I wouldn't want that at the top of my card where he's going to be coming out every week and long-winded. And yeah, like just yeah, I do think he's being underused. I do think there's more he could do, but I just don't think that that's coming out of the mid cat. Like it just hasn't been proven to me, and I just don't think just because someone's a good wrestler that that's indicative of them moving up the card. I think
Mhm.
it has to be more than that. I think it has to be a connection with the fans. And there's a lot
Yeah.
of people who are big House of Black fans and they have that connection. But for me, it's low energy, it's low vibrational, it's lethargic. And I get that that's part of the act, but that connection just it just isn't there. And in the same way that it was for Julia Hart, where she was part of that stable, but yet she managed to get herself over and push so much that she got that mid card TBS title reign. But you don't. People kind of, I see people bitching online about it, but you don't really seem to see that same sort of connection to Malachi. And it's all back and no bite, I feel like, from the fans. Again, I'm not taking away from him as a wrestler. I think he's a great wrestler, but I just don't think he's much of a draw. I think he goes toe to toe with Max. He just gets like eaten alive, like in a promo, and because it's such different styles, but that style just doesn't work at the higher level. I don't think when you're trying to build those big pay-per-view main events, and you have that big promo battle. He just doesn't have that. He does have passion, but it just doesn't
Don't come
cross,
across all that much.
because of his character. It's restrictive. It's a restrictive character in a restrictive box that he is in, unfortunately. And that box is restricted to the mid card, is my conclusion there.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from completely. I just don't like you say, it's not it's just the connection. The connection's not there with the fans. And although it's fun to see something different in the main card, something a bit out of the box, unique. It's just not, I don't know, just don't quite fit. It don't quite fit for me. I mean,
No.
happy to be proven wrong. Maybe he gets
Yeah.
more TV time and stuff. But it would have to be the right sort of really, really, really good effective story with some intensity, like you say, like the intense promos and stuff. Yeah, yeah, I agree with
I
you.
just I just get it's just boring. Like it's just one note. It's like every feud is just we're gonna turn the lights off and beat you up, and then I'm gonna cut an angry, scary promo. Because I was thinking just then, like maybe the answer is to do some fun feuds with some fun contrasting characters. I mean, I know Jericho Vortex, but like the Learning Tree, it's a fun character, like bouncing that off or Cassidy or something like that. But then I just know that they just take it to that serious one note. I feel like with House of Black, everything just bleeds into House of Black. They don't bleed into the other person or the other feud, or the feud doesn't go down a middle road. It just becomes House of Black. Like the Copeland feud, it just becomes. I don't know how to describe it any other way. Like it's so dynamic. It's so one note. And I genuinely want to see what other people are seeing. Like I want that. Like I feel like there's some kind of pill people are taking or popping or something, because I'm not seeing what you're seeing.
That's such a good point. The feuds become House
People
of
are on
Black.
pills.
Oh yeah, that. Everyone's just on drugs. Um, no, that the House of Black like just turns the opponents into that. That's the whole feud. It's just them. It's not sort of them being affected by the other person. So it's not like it's like predictable in that sense. So you don't
Yeah.
ever sort of get the mystery of or
You
the
need another
excitement or
person to
humor.
trump them. Like Copeland,
Mm.
that's why I was really hoping that Copeland would come in, break up that dynamic of that group. And I'm ranting now because it just pisses me off.
Mhm.
Come in, overshadowed him. Malachi sort of has like a crisis. Like, you know, just reinvent the cult, do a 2.0. The Righteous, I liked their sort of cult style. Why don't we bring in that? Why don't we blend it in? Why do we have like some like evangelical sort of vibe? Who's that indie? I'm thinking of someone right now, indie wrestler
Mhm.
who has that cult
Uh,
vibe.
in Markham,
Yeah, but they do
Isaiah
more than that.
Quinn. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I like that kind of gimmick, like I'm still saying they can still sort of do like that kind of vibe, of cult and spooky, but there's different ways to do it. So I just wish like there was like a bigger boss or something, broke up the dynamic, tore it up, and then maybe then we could think about moving up the card. But as of right now, it's just stagnant.
If you think of the same person I'm thinking of, so um Isaiah Quinn and the Freak Show in Markham had a really long running story where Isaiah Quinn is like this cult leader, like you say, and he's got this book of Isaiah, and he says that new life is just around the corner. It's sort of like religious and spooky and weird.
Yeah, like that mega church, like
Mm.
evangelical sort of vibe. And then you look at also, come on, Bray Wyatt
Hmm.
and his sort of take on that gimmick and the way he did it in those early days, that trailer park. I know it kind of went on to demonic Sister Abigail and all that, but the early days was a kind of entirely different. And he shifted that gimmick throughout his whole reign from that
Yeah,
trailer park backwaters, spooky kind of
swamps.
southern gothic vibe to like gore horror, psychological horror with the Sister Abigail, the fun Firefly Funhouse, all that shit. It needs more. This is the
Gimmicks.
turn to run opposite, but it needs more stretch to it.
Yeah, and even being in the mid card doesn't mean that you're stuck in one dynamic. In fact, if anything, it's more important that you are evolving and ever changing and
Yeah.
developing, like someone like Bray Wyatt or The Undertaker, for example, who are always changing their gimmick up a little bit. You're still the same person, you still got that identity, but you're updating it, adapting it to the audience and with the times, changing with the times. Because then that makes you more memorable. You don't get lost in the mid card that way, and you've got the potential to go up further. It's easy to get lost and forgotten about when there's so many people in the mid card, even if you are doing a unique gimmick like that, because as you say, it can get pretty boring and predictable and samey if you just don't change it up.
And that's why we can't see him like going above the mid card. I think for me, like he is the biggest offender of that. Because the outcry, I feel like it's such a loud minority of people that are shouting out for this. Um, so yeah, as I say, that's the one that really sticks in my mind. I also wrote down Daniel Garcia as staying in the mid card, but then I also wrote him as breaking out as well.
Yeah,
Because I
I
think
can.
he'll just constantly be fluctuating between the two.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. He's someone who has all the potential, and I can just see it happening. Just one of those people you say, oh, he always had the potential to be this, to be that, but then he doesn't
Yeah.
do it for whatever reason.
Yeah. Um, and then another one who's kind of I've heard a vocal fan base for is Kyle Fletcher. People thinking that he's going to go on to be the next big thing. I think in the same way with Nick Wayne, but I think a lot of us, and I also class myself as like a big Nick Wayne fan, is that I don't see him coming out of that mid card anytime soon or being pushed anytime soon, and I don't think he needs to.
He's so
Um,
young.
but with like Kyle Fletcher, it's sort of that similar sort of vibe of like being young and the potential. But I think, yeah, like there is an outcry of people who, especially since he's sort of been doing his solo stuff from with Aussie Open because of Mark Davis injury, people are seeing stuff in him. But to me, he's great. Like his ability and his like agility in the ring, but especially with the bleached hair now, it's just knockoff Osprey.
Yeah. He's
So
yeah. I I think yeah, you make a good point. He's got the ability and stuff. And with the new hair and the new look, that's something like that. Simple, what makes you stand out a bit more. Um, yeah, I he's not someone that I'd thought of actually, but no, there's room for growth. There's plenty of room
yeah,
for growth.
there's plenty of room for growth. Um, and then another one that kind of pained me to write down, but sometimes we've got to be honest with ourselves, and that's Hook. I think Hook is
Same.
also staying in the mid card. I think there was a bit of a call out, especially during the Joe match. Um, But yeah, I mean, who knows? Like I say, I do think he's going to be the one to sort of push Jericho out for his tour. But then again, that begs the question: is he going to even re-sign with AEW? And I think that's also why Tony Khan's sort of keeping his cards close to his chest, so to speak, because of being burnt from the Jade Cargill situation of pushing someone young and with that buzz around him, and then not really seeing the fruits of your labor because she debuted in WWE a couple of months after her like massive long title reign ended. So yeah, I think he's a bit hesitant to pull the trigger on him, and yeah, I just can't see him leaving the mid card anytime soon.
I I can see him. You know what we were saying about Orange Cassidy, sort of maybe transitional in the future. If he sticks with AEW in the future, I can sort of see that happening. I don't think that's too sort of far
In
fetched.
like a long stay comedy role, but is that like the type of wrestler that he wants to be?
Yeah, no,
The character of Hook has a bit of a crisis because like I do think he wants to be taken seriously as like that serious fighter, but then his whole character is just awkward Gen Z kid who eats crisps and like he's just a kid. And so it's just a bit, but then in his matches he really turns it up. So it's just a bit of if he can maybe work that in like an Orange Cassidy sort of style. Um,
but I think
who
with
knows?
Samoa Joe at the moment, they're kind of doing a story where he sort of it's sort of like the flip side of the Chris Jericho thing, where he actually gets mentored by someone who genuinely does want to help him and is helpful rather than just an
Yeah.
arsehole. I think there's potential for development that
I still think we're a long, long way off coming out of the mid card. And
mm,
then another one, who I think will be quite controversial is Darby Allin. I also cannot see him leaving the mid card anytime soon. But yeah, Darby Allin, I feel like it's a bit of it's self-inflicted. We're not Darby fans. I'm not gonna dunk on him that much. But do you know what? Talent-wise, in a way. I do think he could be a main eventer. Like, I think in terms of the pillars, he's probably, I want to say second pillar, but I honestly think because Jack Perry is in the main event scene sort of now, and if it all pays off well, I think he'll overtake him as second. Sammy Guevara, what a load of shite. Do you think we hate Darby Allin, we hate Sammy Guevara? Is that irrelevant? That I even forgot about him until this moment. Now I'm pissed off because I remembered he existed. Anyway, God, sorry. Yeah,
hate it when you
I
remember
think
that it
he's
exists.
he fucking exists. Like what? Yeah, people. That's another one. People. The only reason I wrote this down is because he isn't wrestling at the minute because he's on. He's like sanctioned and he's on what's the word? Not hiatus.
Mm,
Suspension. He's been
yeah,
suspended because of the Jeff Hardy fiasco. But if he was, then I'd also be reminded of the constant chatter about how Sammy Guevara needs to be in the main event scene.
please
Now,
no.
those are some crazy pills. I thought Malachi Black, those are some crazy pills. But anyway, irrelevant. Not even going to entertain that. Darby Allin, I think he does have some actual talent there. I genuinely do. And, it's almost self sabotaging that he's kind of calling himself into being that hokey
Yeah,
character that is just a stuntman more than a wrestler. And if he took, I'm not saying compromise on what makes you popular or what's gotten you over or what people love him for, but there has to be some editing, there has to be something because yeah, it's just not main event. It's not it's mid card.
you
And he
can't.
seems to be quite content with that because I
Yeah,
just don't really see that much. I see ambition, but the only ambition I see is like
to
I'm
do
going to
something
get
more
kicked
crazy.
in I'm gonna get kicked in the face with the Bucks' custom shoes with thumbtacks on and re-break my broken nose while I'm upside down. Where's that ambition to like become champion? Like if he put that much ambition that he put into making these spots, it could be like he should be. There is no reason why him at this stage in his career, this is a day one, this is a pillar who, like I say, had a step up above Jack Perry, aka Jungle Boy, and probably Max when they started, I'd argue. You know, if he'd have played his cards right, I'd argue when it first started, he was more over than Max. Like right at the start.
Mm,
Max had to do more to
mm,
get himself right at the start
yeah.
than Darby. I say he had the perfect route and road. There is no reason why people who have come into that company later than you should be world title holders because you've been doing side quests with Sting. And do you know what? I'm ranting, but I'm kind of not knocking it because, yeah, it's been enjoyable programs, and that's the whole point of this conversation is midcard. And is midcard mid? I guess that's what we could call this video, maybe.
Mm,
But just do you understand what I'm saying? Like, there's no reason. You had everything, I feel like, and you could. Since day one, you've had kids in that crowd with your face paint on,
yes,
moving
that's
nerd.
so true.
You have that crowd connection, but there's just no reason why you shouldn't be. But I still don't think you will be in the foreseeable future, especially in the not next few years. That's what I'm
No.
referring to as foreseeable future. I cannot see it.
No, I can't because world champions don't throw themselves off 10-foot ladders through glass.
I
That's not
know,
what
how
world
long would his reign
champions do.
last? He'd relinquish it within like a week.
Hmm. In kayfabe, I'm not in kayfabe too. So we were talking about the
Yeah.
Miz who has got longevity because he wrestles that safe style, which whether you like it or not, he's barely got injured, and that's why he's been able to go for so long. So outside of kayfabe,
Mm.
but in kayfabe too, like that's not how you win a championship belt. Like it, you know, you have to have a really good finisher you can hit out of nowhere, sort of thing. You need to pick up pinfalls. He just
Yeah.
eats kicks to the face and head bumps all the time. That's not
Yeah.
productive of, being a champion. So, and I can see AEW again. I said it about Orange Cassidy, sort of a nod to him, all the stuff that he's done for the company, wanting to put that belt on him, but he's not a viable contender currently. Like I agree with you, not in the foreseeable future.
It's an absolute liability. But it's not even just that. It's not even just, oh, we don't want to put the belt on him because he might, get
Get
injured. It's
injured.
like he just doesn't keep his momentum. He could have what he's got is already quite a lot, and he could have so much more. And there is so many people that love him. Tony Khan loves him. Adam Copeland loves him. Swerve loves him. Omega loves him. When Max loves him. When people shout out people at that top, you know, who is just a top level performer, they shout him out.
Mm.
People root for him. And not only him, but the crowd as well. And even deep down, we root for him, okay? But it's
In
like
in in deep down.
deep down, but it's frustrating because it's like I can't bet on a losing horse, Like
Mhm.
I'm all for the chase, I'm all for the underdog, I'm all for rooting for people, but call it WWE PTSD or whatever, like it's like you've got to kind of have that level of like believability.
Mm.
And I do think it is on him because I think if he presented himself more seriously, and I'm not saying do away with all the hardcore bullshit and the hokey bullshit. I love blood, I love chaos, I love violence, okay? Love it. Fucking love it. But like just take yourself just a little bit more seriously because you have the talent. And everyone's got different ethoses in wrestling. Not everyone wants to be world champion.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I say, I just find it just a real head scratcher because he should be up there.
Hmm. Like all the stuff that you just said, like kids in the crowd wearing his face paint and stuff. Get over like get them merch sales and stuff. Make that connection.
Yeah.
Make the fans advocate for you. Then you go to the top. But it's hard to yeah do that when it's hard to
And the
value
fans
him.
already are. People
Mm.
love him.
It's hard
Love him.
for anyone to value him more when he clearly doesn't really value himself. If he's sort of limiting
Yeah.
himself to being this stunt guy, then that's all he's ever going to be. Like you said it earlier, he's just kind of putting himself in this corner.
Yeah. So would love to see that different side of him, maybe that. And I thought maybe coming out of Sting, like that's what we were getting.
Mm.
Because again, who wanted to have who did Sting want to have his last match with? Darby Allin. It speaks volumes of
Hmm.
what people, the potential people see in him. And you'd kind of think after that he would then work on his solo career. Obviously wanted to go to Everest, didn't end up happening. Got hit in the face by a bus, then did Anarchy in the Arena, because of course that's the normal career trajectory after having a farewell match with fucking Sting of all people. But yeah, like, oh, it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating.
It
Because
is
you'd
because
think that'd be the natural step, is going up,
yeah,
winning a title of your own, being like, I bragging rights, I've won the tag titles with Sting on his last match with his sons, but now I need to go out on my own solo expedition, my own solo career, and I need to prove it not only to myself but to Sting, because I've learned things from Sting. That is such a story. Like, that would have been the
right.
natural progression for that character rather than what we've had.
It wrote itself really, didn't it? That story, but I
It
think
really did.
but circumstances, I guess. I guess the idea was he goes off
But
to
was
Everest for a while.
self-induced.
Yeah,
No one
but
was forced. No one had a gun to this man's head saying, go to Everest.
yeah,
And
no, they
I get
didn't.
that that's who he is, and it don't matter how much I rant, it's never gonna change him. But
It's just the
oh
type
my
of guy
god,
he is.
it's just the type of guy he is. But yeah, um, but in that sort of breath, I'd now like to talk about mid-carders who we actually think are gonna break out. Um, and for me, like I say, I wrote down Daniel Garcia.
Hmm.
I wrote down Jeff Jarrett, because
All right.
I'd love to see that. That's the type of program I want to see. Jeff Jarrett winning the big one, just sailing off into the horizon.
But that
Just
is like a
lovely.
retirement angle.
Yeah, just Jeff Jarrett, just belt collector Jeff Jarrett. And the one that I just think, I feel like you should already know who it is, Jay White. Come
Yes, of
on,
course.
like, it's not only just potential in Derby Allen, like it should happen. It should
Hmm.
happen, and it will happen.
I
That man
agree.
is holding that belt maybe by the end of this year.
I agree, but I think people don't like him, and I don't really understand why. Like
I've never seen people who don't like him. Who doesn't
I
like him? I know
I've come
you didn't
across.
like him.
I no, I never
People
used.
didn't like him. I don't.
Oh, who would not like
Who
Jay
could?
White? My God. No, I didn't used to like him, but he's won me
Yeah.
over now. He's funny, he's entertaining. I've never doubted that he was a really good wrestler. I've just seen. I guess it's on like Twitter and stuff, just people criticizing. I think some people find him boring. But
Yeah, but that's just
I
because you haven't. Oh no, wrong.
incorrect.
Just wrong. Like, go watch a media scrum, a fallout, the press release after any New Japan match with Jay White absolutely losing his mind. And even the AEW backstage interviews, they usually get posted online, which are just hilarious and entertaining, that he does with the Guns and Juice Robinson. But especially that losing his mind, um, just sycophantic, just
Whoa, that was a big word.
madman. Don't act too surprised. It happens
I
at least once a day. Okay,
I
I
did
can be
not know.
intelligent once a day.
I've never heard that word before.
But that kind of um that kind of character, and then we kind of got shades of it in the MJF feud when he took the title, and you kind of got that gloating, psychotic monologues that he would give, and he's just so good at it. And just, yeah, I mean, his wrestling is just fantastic. Like every match, and it's something a little bit different as well. I like how he doesn't really have like a solid move set. It's quite reactionary to his opponent. It's quite pathetic. Um, but then it like he'll snipe in with his offense. And I think like the stable of Bullet Club Gold is great. And I just yeah, I mean I do think that right now he's losing momentum day by day in that trios section. I've been saying for ages he needs to break out of it, but I think when he does, and maybe it's winning the Owen, maybe it's something like that. But yeah, he's
Yeah.
just I just don't understand how people can think he's boring or like underestimate him because he is a top talent, and during that time when he got signed by AEW, he only missed WWE by like a whisker. Like it was just because of all the they were doing the Endeavor deal and they were doing the layoffs and the budget cuts, but he was like a top free agent at the time. Um, so yeah, I think he's just the full package, um, for sure. And all you need to be reminded is for him to go into a top program with the likes of Osprey or a
Mm.
Swerve or an Omega. That's where the money is. I've said they want Kenny Omega, Jay White, the history with the Bullet Club. Like it's there. It's all there. And it would be like a lovely final passing of the torch from Kenny to Jay. I would just please.
I can see that happening. To me, Jay White looks like a champion. I see world champion when I look at him. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not a huge, massive hardcore fan of him like you are, like, but I can appreciate him, and I do definitely see world championship material when I look at him, and I think
There's a
AEW does
difference,
as
isn't there,
well.
with him with the guns in Bullet Club Gold. You
Yeah.
don't look at those four guys, and I love those four guys, but you don't look at those four guys and think they're all on the same level.
Mm.
He's the leader, not only in kayfabe and in like the sense of the dynamic of being the leader, but he's like above them.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Like, and that plays into the dynamic.
Yeah.
So how anyone could see that he would be belonging in the mid card is just. And even those people who, like we say, are at the top of the mid card and will be forever and have a legacy, like Orange Cassidy, they're different. There is a level up
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is.
because he
It's
takes himself seriously. The character is
yeah.
aggressive, it's nasty, it's backstabbing, and it takes itself seriously. It is, dare I say, the better prototype of the Adam Cole character.
Interesting.
And I think
Mm.
very easily I love Adam Cole as well, but during that MGF Cole feud, you could have easily interchanged it with Jay White. Jay White as the devil.
Mm.
They're
Yeah,
very
to be
similar
fair.
characters, when
Yeah,
you think about it.
that is true. That is true when you think about it.
Like two sides of the same coin.
Mm.
But yeah, that was my main one. Do you have any breakouts?
What
Clash.
about
Wishful thinking.
what about Penta? Now, I know he's a tag wrestler.
I love Penta, but no. He
No.
should be. He should be. He absolutely fucking should be by talent and just looks, and it's like you say, looks like a star.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's almost like if one of the titles was elevated to like in that era of WWE World Heavyweight Championship when the World Heavyweight did really feel like second, and the WWE is first, but we don't have that. But that's where like I'd put him like high up, like I'd give him that second title, but I don't think I'd give him
Upper
the
mid card.
first.
Upper mid
Yeah,
card sort of thing. Is
I adore him.
me too, and I think probably from watching Lucha Underground as well and seeing the solo stuff that he did there and the amazing stories, I think I could see him doing a really big solo sort of program, but whether that is in that upper card, that main event, I don't know. But I feel like
I think it's too competitive for him.
mm,
I just don't see it happening. I think unfortunately you've got to be able to talk.
right,
And I think
that's
that
true.
is a barrier there. And I think there's ways to get around it, like Okada. And maybe he could have that Okada role, but will Okada be AEW champion? Personally, I don't think so. I think he'll be main event. I think he'll have great matches. I think he'll win belts, but I just don't think as the face of the company, like that's where they're putting it. And I'm not saying that's right, but I'm just saying like realistically, like promos are a big part of it. And
Yep.
unfortunately, yeah, if you can't cut that promo or you don't have someone to cut that promo for you, in the sense that if we had a Paul Heyman,
Mm-hmm.
maybe then, but we don't have a Paul Heyman. We have an
Mm-hmm.
Alex Abrahantes, who I'm sorry, just is not a Paul Heyman. You know,
No,
we don't
it's a
have
high
that. If we
bar.
had that, that is the only way. You know,
Mm.
we could get that. But it's wishful thinking. I'd love it. I would love to live in a world where Penta is dominating everything and just living his best life in his red attire. I'd love it, but yeah.
I think yeah, you're right because to I think the main difference between the mid card and that upper card, that main event, that champion, is you have to be an all rounder. You have to
Mm.
have a bit of everything. So you have to have the look, you have to have the promos, you have to have the in ring, you have to have the connection with the fans. It's all these things
It's the
because
Bret Hart ranking, isn't it? It's like the look, the wrestling, and I think I've forgotten the third. It might be the promo,
mm,
but it's like, and then it's a score out of 30 and it's 10 for each.
hmm
And it's like you've got to be in those late 20s to be seen as like a main event. It's like you've got to be well rounded.
exactly. Yeah. And some people, I said this about Claudio as much as I love him. He's not that good at cutting promos. Like he cuts really good ones when he's passionate and he's in the moment, but he's not great at in front of the fans just getting there and cutting one off the bat. Whereas
Yeah.
Moxley is really good at that, for example. So um that's the but that's okay. Like not everyone can be in the main event. You don't ha you know, it's not to say that you're a bad wrestler, but you need, I think, for a company to put that belt on you to make you the face of the company, you have to be fully reliable in all these aspects.
Yeah. Can I put another name to you who I didn't know whether to put in breakout or stay in? It might be wishful thinking, but I think looks, I guess maybe do they have the look of a champion? What is the look of a champion? Um, I don't think you look at him and think he is like world champion, but Eddie Kingston,
Mm,
I think he's a mid carder. He's definitely a staple in that same way that Orange Cassidy is. And so if you
mhm.
were to tier rank, you know, we put him up high, but he's in the mid card. So is he going to get out of that? Like, can you see him winning the big one?
Oh, if no, no, my gut instinct, my
Ooh,
gut reaction is no, I can't.
but Penta can. Eddie Kingston can't, but Penta can. Hot takes
There's,
today,
yeah, it
people.
is a hot take. It is hot, but I don't even know why. I think maybe if he could have a feud with Moxley, when Moxley was champ, them two would have an awesome program, I bet. But and they obviously have already, but for the
Yeah, they kind
championship.
of did.
Um,
But yeah, like you say, for the title,
I think obviously I want him to, but I don't know.
being realistic.
Yeah, I don't quite. I don't. I just don't see it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think he could have when he was kind of gaining that sort of momentum and before the influx of the new roster for NXT, not NXT. I'm thinking 2.0 NXT. Anyway, Dynamite 2.0 of the Osprey and then the Swerve coming out on top, MGF returning, all that bullshit that's going on at the top. Like before that, there was quite a bit of space, and I think there would have been his opportunity to move up. A
Mhm.
lot of the guys who were in the main event scene, he has wrestled before on separate occasions.
Yeah.
And he's put on some great matches against them. And he's got a great fired up character, pissed off baby face. So it's like his character would have the motivation and ambition to go there, but I just think the door's shut for now.
Mm.
And yeah, like I just can't see it happening right now either. But again, like in the future, possibly. I think just right now, like it's so stacked up there that
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly that.
like unless your character has a radical change, which makes it like undeniable that you deserve to go to the top, or there is an opening, i.e. someone's getting injured, someone leaves at the top, um something like that. Like I just don't think many people are going to be able to enter because
Mm.
unfortunately it is about the shiny new toys and
Yeah.
playing with the new action figures at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's sort of like where I'm at, I think. Hopefully proven wrong by some of these that, we said, we want ideally all the people that we said, even like Malachi and Darby, like, if they can prove us wrong, we'd love to be proven wrong. And good wrestling's good fucking wrestling. Good program's a good program.
Yeah.
Uh, no one's immune to changing their mind. Look at Roman Reigns. Look how people changed up
Mm.
on Roman Reigns. Um,
We're
so
not
yeah,
we're not like negative or bitter just for the sake of it. It's like not that we're not negative or bitter at all. It's like, you can have valid criticism, but ultimately we want AEW to succeed and we want the really good wrestlers to succeed and be the
and
best and
hot feuds and hot programs and hot
yeah.
characters at the top, not just being pushed to the top for the sake of it.
Hmm.
Um, and that's like another little criticism about AEW's mid card. There's two. One is that the mid card is quite bloated, and then because of that, it just kind of creates this vortex. And then the second one is that Tony tries to push too many guys at once,
Hmm.
and then you never really get that top star. But then on the flip side, when he doesn't do that, people complain that, oh, well, this person's been forgotten about, this person's been forgotten about. But personally, I think the latter should always be prioritized in that you really need to fucking commit to your top stars.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everyone's just the same. And as shit as it is that Jay White is not in that main event scene right now, I know his time will come. I know. And if that means that other people at the top are getting built up and built up and built up, so then when Jay White does come up, he's got viable contenders and he is sort of going on that chase rather than just going up and everyone's at the same level and we're all columns and we're all just great wrestlers, like
Mhm.
that is a sacrifice that has to be made. So sometimes some people do have to spend a bit of time in purgatory, in the mid-card
Yeah.
purgatory.
Yeah. And there's, you know, it's all right. It's all right to build it up in the mid card. I think, but it's it's a valid point that AEW's mid card is pretty stacked and maybe got too many
That's
people
just
in
because the
it.
roster's too big. And
Exactly.
like we say, there's no nuance to the roster. It's just the best and everyone else.
Hmm.
There's nowhere to go. Like where else is there to go? Ring of Honor. It's not
This,
really a developmental place.
yeah,
So that's why everyone's just there.
yeah. This is what I was gonna say. I think one of the biggest problems is that they've got the whole roster full of mid carders in Ring of Honor, really, and mid card titles as well. And there's just too much
People are trying
going
to move
on.
up from Ring of Honor to the fucking mid card. That's
Mhm.
like that's the issue is it's mid card top.
Yeah,
And
and yeah, you've got the Ring of Honor
not
World
enough
title, which is
space.
it's prestigious in its own right, but it doesn't feel that way on AEW programming. it's sometimes defended there, it's sometimes on TV, but we don't have any reason to feel like it's a big deal. So
Yeah.
then Ring of Honor sort of loses its stakes and becomes a whole mid card within itself. There's just a lot of stuff going on that it becomes hard to keep track of it
Yeah.
when there's no there's no lower part to buffer that.
Yeah, it's hard to follow, and it's not like I don't want this to come across a certain way, but it's like if you watch Collision or you watch Rampage or you watch Ring of Honor, you're not rewarded by it used to be that you'd be rewarded that you'd be able to watch people build themselves up to get on to get more TV time because they'd get, like I said earlier, that safeguard, they'd get themselves more over with the crowd and then it'd become undeniable. We need to put this person on TV. But now the reward is just more wrestling. And I'm not saying that's bad because the wrestling's fucking great. And Collision's format is to an extent great. I still have some criticisms, but it's fun, that fun Saturday cocktail of wrestling, that
Mhm.
WCW blending of styles. You get some little Easter eggs.
Mm,
You get like a big match. You get time to let a match and breathe.
mm,
It's great, but it is just wrestling and wrestling of the mid card, but no one's coming out of that stronger.
hmm Yeah, it's just kind of
The
happening
only time people were
for the sake
coming
of
out of
it.
it strong was when CM Punk was ruling it.
Mm, interesting.
Then
Like
it was
that's
like some stars were being made,
yeah.
you know? That was
Mm,
when Jay White really was able to kind of connect with fans, House of Black, like all that. So yeah, definitely a problem. But what's your proposal then to sort of resolve this? You know, if you're Tony Khan, what are you doing about exposing? You've got such a stacked mid card. How do you expose it better?
Uh, oh, I don't know, because I feel like what I want to say is maybe a bit. I don't want to say it, but you maybe let some people go. You don't need all them people. If you're not doing anything meaningful with them, let them move on and go do something else. Obviously, no one
Who
wants. Oh, I
who
don't know.
who let it go?
The people at the bottom of our tier ranking, at the bottom half of that
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
I don't know because I kind of see maybe to an extent what Tony wants to do, which is give everyone a chance and just showcase great wrestling. Um, I think I don't know. I don't know. What would you do?
Um, I think I'd just create a developmental,
Mm,
like I said, retiring of honor once you get your streaming deal. You've got the tapes, you've got the video library, you can get that uploaded to your little AW section. Here's every like fucking Ring of Honor match ever.
mm,
And you've got that under lock and key. Do a little rebrand and do a little refresh. Um, and yeah, create this thing where it's like following just like NXT, following these people trying to build up and put a different creative on there. You know, one of the great things NXT 2.0, it's not a product for me, but it is one of the top rated products. People fucking love it, and you know, Shawn Michaels is at the front of that, and he's doing a great job down there. It's got its own little feel, kind of like a campus
hmm
feel. And it's just an hour's worth of television, so that'd help you divide it up. And like I said, a brand split, I think would just, and I think, yeah, firing a few people and being more committed because I think there is some commitment with some people like Orange Cassidy
Yeah.
because they're a staple and you do pretty much see them every week. But then for other, especially people who are in a bit of a fragile position, I mean, Hook right now is in a program, so I can't really say that. But you know, your Daniel Garcia's people who people want to see more and people are rooting for, but they're never really given a chance to root for because they root for him and then he's gone. So people like that being in more of a rotation
Yeah.
um would be kind of my answer, I think.
I think a brand split would, and we've talked about it before, but I think it'd be a brilliant idea when you've got such a big roster. It's one of the only ways I think that you can get everyone in, well, not everyone obviously, but a lot of people in something meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, but it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Old Tony, I
It
think
is
feel
a
like
tough one.
sometimes he wants to make everyone happy. He wants to be people's friend.
He's such a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Relatable. And afraid of confrontation. Also relatable, but you know, it's not a great boss. At times. So yeah, I feel like we've had an interesting little discussion today
We
about
have.
the mid card. We still managed to go on tangents despite this being the tangent fucking monthly episode. But
Good tangents though. Interesting.
yeah, and hopefully some, like I say, we divide it up a bit more so we can see those in the mid card that perhaps don't have a light shone on them, but also that the top people can move up.
Hmm.
When given that we're not saying cram everyone to the top, everyone should be number one guy. Like we also don't want that.
No.
But yeah, it's definitely a delicate balance, and I think it doesn't help, which as we've discussed today, that there is less of like a hierarchy like than when we were younger.
Mm.
Like WWE, that sort of roster style, and even to this day, like their roster style is different to AEW because it's not based on who's the best wrestler. You know, it's based on who is the most entertaining. And
Hmm.
so people like an LA Knight, who I'm not saying should be a mid carder, but you know, like would he be in that main event scene in another company? Probably not.
Hmm. He's
But
just
it's
got
just
that.
different priorities, isn't it?
He's got that WWE superstar vibe.
He's
You,
a fucking star. He's a
mhm.
star. I like LA Knight. But yeah,
You don't
it's
get that in AEW. You don't get that superstar sort of cheesy sort of thing. It's like,
well,
well, you do, but it's like wrestler. They've worked hard to get this sort of thing. Yeah, it's different. The vibe's totally different.
yeah. But it's been interesting doing like a deep dive
I really
into
enjoyed
all.
it.
Yeah, me too. And just doing something a bit different and just being able to have a bit more of a freelance sort of take
Mm.
on it. So yeah, like if anyone else has any suggestions for any topics, essays, questions, periods of history, wrestling promotions, just like anything, we'd love to. We've got like a little spreadsheet going, you know, of ideas, so we'd love to add some more and obviously create things that people wanna watch. Um, and yeah, we'll be back next month for the July episode of this style of content. So
Yeah, let us know what you
yeah.
thought. And let us know your favorite mid-carder.
Yeah, and who you think should be in the mid card. I'm sure people have disagreements, so feel free to tell us all the reasons why we're wrong in the
Yeah,
comments.
yeah.
um, but yeah, and like I guess how you would resolve the mid card issue, or is it
Oh,
just
do you even think it's an issue? Or do you think it's
yeah?
fine?
I mean, you know, the issue is too many talented guys in one company. What's the alternative? You know, we go back to the jobber era. I don't know, but yeah. I guess that'll do it. So we'll see you next week for a Dynamite review.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
that'll wrap it up for this one.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and rate, and all that stuff. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
I must bid you adieu, goodbye, and good night, bad.
I wish you died in the womb!